In this video, I'm going to share with you a keynote that I did for an organization called Pega Systems, where I share the entire next play accountability protocol that you can implement in your business or with your team that'll immediately increase focus, your team's performance by 500%, and ultimately increase your revenue.
All right, what's up, Pega? Let's go. Awesome. Today, I'm going to share with you not the, right, Leon? The evidence-based accountability system for sales teams. And the question you might be asking me right now is, Richie, what the hell is an accountability system? Well, I'm glad you asked, because in this short period of time together, I'm not only going to share with you a tool that you can immediately implement, but a system with specific frameworks so you can implement it to increase your focus, performance, as well as your income. And what makes this awesome is it's not only to increase yours, but to be able to increase the income of everybody around you and to use this in all areas of your life. Now, this isn't the only way to implement accountability. In fact, I'm sure there's many different ways that you can go about doing it. However, I know that you're going through significant change right now. So this is a way that you can implement accountability within your business that's built around positivity. And I'm not going to talk about software. So does that sound like a good use of our time? Awesome. So it wouldn't be a talk around accountability and driving accountability in business without asking you to hold me accountable. So the first thing that I'm going to share with you and I'm going to have you hold me accountable to is how to elevate your performance by 500% consistently, even with long and unpredictable sales cycles. And you're reading that correctly, 500%. How many of you, by a show of hands, have long and unpredictable sales cycles? Awesome. Well, we got to stay motivated and increase performance. Number two, how to hold yourself and others accountable without micromanaging. Now, by a show of hands, how many of you are leaders in the room? Keep your hands up. Look around real quick. All right, good. You put your hands down. So, all of you in this room should have had your hand up. Some chuckles here. Why? Because if you're in sales, you're a business owner. This is your business. You've got to lead not only yourself, you've got to lead a team. If you're an AE, if you're a captain, you got consultants, you got client success team members. So you have to lead your team. You got to lead your clients. And so I'm going to share with you how to do it without micromanaging, because nobody wants to be micromanaged, yes? Yes. And then number three, how to increase your commissions by 20% plus without more sales training or changing your sales process. I'm not going to give you any sales training. Why? Because I had the pleasure of speaking with a few of you in this room, thank you very much, and I know you have experience in sales, and a lot of it. I know your seasons. I know you have a lot of industry experience. And I also am not coming up here and claiming to be an expert in selling Gen AI, CRM, marketing workflow automation systems, although I geek out on them. But I'm not claiming to be an expert. What I am going to do, though, is share with you a system that you can bolt onto your current business if you choose to, that has made a drastic impact on many different organizations and people all over the world. So the choice is yours. Now, this system ensures three things. Number one, you're clear on your goals at all times. Number two, you're focused on your next play. And number three, accountable every single week. Very simple. Clear on your goals, focused on your next play, and accountable every single week. Now, I've been lucky enough and had the pleasure to share this system all over the world with many different organizations, and we have had a lot of success, but I'm not here to go through all of that with you because it doesn't matter. This is about you. So I'm going to get right into this and share with you, so you have some context, where it came from, and then how you can use it. My dream was to play big-time college football, and if you can't tell from where you're sitting right now, I look more like a freaking chess player, all right? And so, not quite a football player. However, with the use of this accountability system that I'm going to share with you, it allowed me to go on to live my dream, earning a full-ride Division I football scholarship in the SEC at Ole Miss. And what's really cool about this is it didn't only work for me. There's a division of my company called Next Play Athletes, and we work with high school football players to earn college football scholarships. And if any of you have kids that are in high school trying to earn college athletic scholarships in any sport, it's straight up sales. Like, you're cold calling coaches, you're cold emailing, you're trying to get them to watch your video, you're trying to get a visit, you're trying to get an offer. And so we work with athletes all over the country using this same system, and 83% of the athletes we work with earn college football scholarships. 83% using this same system. Now, after my football career, I got into sales. Why? Because that's what you do when you play sports. By a show of hands, how many of you played sports? Okay, perfect. How many of you didn't? Okay, you can't. You're in sales. Sales is a sport. So you've played a sport. So I went into sales, my first job. I didn't bring anything that I learned in football, nothing. And within 3 months of my first sales job, I got fired. And I called my coach back at Ole Miss, and I said, I just got fired from my first job. It's only been 3 months. And he goes, well, did you bring what you learned in football and brought it into business? And I said, no. And he says, well, let's do that. So I went, got my next sales job, and in my first year was Rookie of the Year and won this really cool belt using this same system. Now, it wouldn't be fair if I shared with you this system and didn't do it myself. So I have my own sales team. We implement this same exact system and have grown by actually 260% just in the last 11 months. And lastly, not only did this work for my sales team in all these different areas and the corporations that we worked with, but also I had this dream of writing a book. And that's hard. And when I was younger, I was diagnosed with all kinds of stuff. ADHD, ADD, dyslexia, HDTV, ESPN, you name it. But using this same exact system, went on to write a book that became a bestseller. And so let's jump into how this can be implemented with you. And so my first question is, what percentage of salespeople actually hit their goal? What do you think? I'll get some feedback. Yell it. 35? Really good. What else? 40%. Good. Really close. Study done by, I hate to say the word, I don't like them, don't worry, but there was a study done by Salesforce. Oh, I had the wrong picture up. Sorry about that. There was a study done by Salesforce, and they found that 60% of salespeople don't hit their goal. And what stood out to me about this is that these same salespeople had a sales process, they had sales training, and they still didn't hit the goal. So the next question is, why? Why is it that salespeople don't hit their goal? Shout it out. What is it? Okay. What else? Huh? Don't plan. Discipline. Boom. So here are they, right? Objections, discipline, poor listening, not following up, complacency, burnout, not believing in the product, not asking for the sale, right? These are all, but here's the thing. These are all simple, learnable skills. And all of you are seasoned. You know how to do this. You can go on YouTube and learn how to overcome objections. So if it's not just simple skills that you can learn, what is it? And so what we found is the reason that 67% don't hit their goal, and I'm not saying you don't, but 60% don't, is because of a lack of execution. And a lack of execution comes from a lack of focus. And a lack of focus comes from a lack of accountability. And so there was a study done, and it was done over Christmas break. And so they brought in these participants, and half of the participants had to weigh themselves every day. And the other half didn't. They didn't need to change anything. They didn't need to change their diet. They didn't need to change their workout plans. They didn't need to change anything. They just had to weigh themselves every day. And here were their results. People who weighed themselves every day lost an average of 1.9 pounds, while the people that didn't weigh themselves gained on average 4.9 pounds. Why? Because having to step on the scale was accountability. And it changed their focus. It changed subconsciously the decisions that they made. And so you are the scale. You're the scale for yourself, as well as the scale for your team. Now, to bring home where Next Play came from, so you can implement it and use it to create focus, which comes from accountability, I want to share a quick story. It was October of 1997, and I was walking through the front door of my house, and my dad said, "Richie, come and sit down." And I went and I sat down, and it's this old wood rickety table, and my mom was in tears, and I knew this wasn't good. And I sat down, and my dad said to me, "Your mom and I were getting a divorce." And I remember getting up from that table and just feeling empty, feeling like I didn't know what to do. And I really struggled in school at this time, and walked into the classroom not too much longer after, and my teacher said, "Richie, go stand outside." So I went and I stood outside, and she said, "I've been trying to tell you all year that if you don't make a change, you're gonna fail. And I reviewed your grades this morning, and you failed." And I remember walking out of the classroom that day just absolutely not only feeling empty, but feeling depressed, feeling like I had all this weight on my chest. And not only did I just find out that I failed, but the only thing that I loved to do, which was play football, I struggled at. See, I played wide receiver, and if you don't know, the wide receiver is the one that's supposed to catch the ball. And I couldn't. That's a problem. And so one practice, after I dropped another pass, my coach came up to me, and he got on a knee, and he said, "Richie, what are you thinking about when the ball's in the air?" And I said, "I don't know. I'm thinking about the last time I dropped the ball, or I'm thinking about what's my dad going to think about me, or I'm thinking about what if I actually catch this ball this time and I don't know what to do with it." And he goes, "Richie, I've watched you buy new gloves. I've watched you buy new cleats. I watched you get here early and leave late and do all this stuff." He goes, "But until you focus on that ball in front of you, you're never going to catch it." And then he asked me the question that changed my life forever. He said, "What's the most important play?" He said, "The last play doesn't matter anymore. What's the most important play now?" And I was frustrated and I was angry. I was like, "I don't know." And he nudges me and he says, "Next play." And he goes, "The last play is over. What can you do differently this time?" I said, "Well, I guess I can catch the ball with my hands this time and not let it go into my body." And he goes, "Okay, well, how are you going to do that?" And I said, "Put my hands like this." And he grabbed my hands and he said, "No, you're going to put your hands like this." And then he said, "When are you going to do it by?" I said, "I'm going to do it the next time the ball is in the air." And I got up and walked towards that huddle. And all of a sudden, there was a weight lifted off my shoulders because I realized the last play didn't matter. All the times I dropped the ball in the pass it didn't matter. All the times that I had failed didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was the next play in front of me, was the ball in front of me. And so this coach, over time, created this whole thing, I guess culture around next play. And anytime someone struggled, it was always like, "Next play, let's go." And he even did it when you made a good play, because you get complacent. You say, hey, what's the most important play? Next play, let's go. And all of a sudden, I just kept catching ball after ball after ball. And my parents took hold of this, and they started saying to me, Richie, next play when you're struggling in school, next play, next play. I was a D and an F student. From that point on, I never got a D and an F again. What this coach did as a leader was he created this culture where there is no failure. There's only your next play. And so for you and your teams, what if you operated where there is no failure, there's always your next play? You have a dry run that doesn't go good. Cool, we're on to the next play. We're going to figure out where we learned. Boom, we're going to practice it again. We had a demo that didn't go well. We had a client that didn't show up. Boom, we're on to the next play. What this coach did without knowing about it was something that they study in neuro-linguistic programming. Anybody familiar with NLP? By show of hands? Awesome, very good. Neuro-linguistic program. It's a pattern interrupt. A pattern interrupt involves recognizing an unwanted pattern, disrupting it, and leading someone to the desired behavior. So whether you're a solutions consultant, you're a client success manager, you're an operations, you're an AE, you're a captain, you're a leader within this room, how many times does somebody get stuck because something didn't work out and then it goes to the next play? How many times do you turn on the TV and you watch a sport or you watch football and the quarterback throws an interception and the next time he goes out there, boom, he throws another interception? So this is a way that you could, boom, shift focus onto the next play. So here's how you do it. Here's how he did it. Here's how you can do it. Number one, you always have to have a what. He asked me, what are you going to do? Well, coach, I'm going to catch the ball with my hands and I'm not going to let it get into my body. Okay, well, you set a meeting and they no-showed. What are you going to do? Well, I'm going to do a better job of sending reminders, and maybe I'm going to make a pre-frame video for that potential client to get them excited about the meeting. Okay, cool. Well, how are you going to do that? Well, I'm going to send a reminder 2 days before, 1 day before, and I'm going to send one 2 hours before. And I'm going to spend just 2 minutes, and I'm going to make a very simple video getting them so excited for that meeting. And when are you going to do that by? The next time I have a meeting. Boom, let's go. Now, instead of being frustrated and down and missing half a day of productivity, whoosh, we're on to the next play, and we're focusing on the next move, the next client. Does that make sense? Are you all with me? Yes? Okay, good. What, how, when, go. Seems very simple, right? Awesome. Here's what most people do. They focus on the past. Past things that didn't work out. Past goal that was not met. Or they're focused on the future. Oh, what if I don't hit my goal this quarter? What if I don't hit this? And on top of that, you all have many distractions of you. You have kids, you have families, you have many different things going on. And so Microsoft did this study. It's really interesting. Trying to focus on more than one thing at a time reduces your productivity by as much as 40%. That's the cognitive equivalent of pulling an all-nighter. And some of you are working day in and day out with the cognitive equivalent of pulling an all-nighter. And so by not focusing on the next play in front of you, you can create some really bad habits, like making excuses, procrastination, blame, self-doubt. And I know none of you in this room are excuse makers. There might be times you just have a bad habit of making excuses. You're not procrastinators. You just have a bad habit of pushing things off. Or you're not somebody with self-doubt. There just may be some times that you got a bad habit of not believing in yourself. On the flip side of that, here's what insane focus looks like. And for a lot of you in this room, because of the headquarters of this operation, you might really get a kick out of this.
What do you think having a 37-year-old?
We're on to Cincinnati. It's nothing about the past, nothing about the future. It's right now we're preparing for Cincinnati.
Okay, do you feel like the talent you have here is good?
We're getting ready for Cincinnati.
We got to turn the page. I mean, we're going to sit there and talk about the Kansas City game for the rest of the season any more than we would talk about any of our big wins for day after day after day. You know, it's 24 hours after the game. You got to move on.
What is your responsibility?
Well, I mean, I'm just asking, do you think you've done enough to help Tom Brady?
We're getting ready for Cincinnati.
How many Patriot fans by a show of hands do we have in here? Okay, good, a lot. Greatest coach of all time. I know he's still looking, but look, greatest duo with him and Brady of all time. And that's the level of focus that it takes. Can you all agree with me on that? Yes? Yeah. So if we know that accountability creates focus, what does focus actually do? Any of you, by a show of hands, familiar with the book Flow? Great book. Flow is an optimal state of consciousness, a peak state where we feel both our best and perform our best. How many of you have ever been in a position where you got into work and you were just, boom, this meeting went well, boom, onto this. My group of calls went good, boom, my demo went good, and the next thing you know, it's 5 o'clock and you're like, damn. By a show of hands, how many of you had that scenario? Yeah, you were in what's called a state of flow. But here's what's interesting about this. There was a study done by McKinsey & Co. of 10,000 executives, not 10, 10,000. And what they found was that when they were in a state of flow, they increased their performance by 500%. That's the equivalent of only working on Mondays. I'm not saying to do that, by the way. So if we know focus comes from accountability, and focus puts us in flow, and flow increases our performance by 500%. The ultimate question is, how can you successfully hold yourself and others accountable without micromanaging consistently to increase performance by 500%? Here's how most do it. I'm going to show you the old way of accountability. What does this definition imply? Required or expected to justify actions or decisions. What is this talking about? Yell it out. What is it? Don't be shy. I'm intimidated by you guys, by the way, just so you know. Go ahead. Someone else, okay. This implies the past. This is saying, where's Drake? What's up, Drake? Thanks for the hoodie, man. Hey, Drake, you said you were going to do this, and you didn't do it. By a show of hands, who wants to be held accountable like that? No. But unfortunately, this is how most look at accountability, and this is why most people don't want it. I don't want that. So this is the traditional way of accountability. This is the old way, and this is why we have these type of statistics. Partner in Leadership did a study on this. Fewer than 1 in 5 people are able to successfully hold others accountable for delivering on expectations in the workplace. 82% of respondents admitted that they have limited to no ability to hold others accountable successfully, and 91% of respondents said they would rank improving the ability to hold others accountable in an effective way as one of the top leadership development needs of their organization. And it's because we look at accountability as negative. But there's so much science proven that if it's done correctly, it leads to insane results. So how do we do it the right way? Here's the new way. Here's next play accountability, where of course, we still have to hold people accountable to what they said they were going to do. But we also hold people accountable by helping them choose a next play and keeping them focused on that next play over and over and over, one play at a time, as well as holding them accountable to achieving whatever the hell it is that they want in their life. Instead of holding you accountable to your sales goals, holding you accountable to your sales numbers, I want to hold you accountable to what that sales number does for you. Financial freedom? New car, new house, time freedom. What does that do for you? That's what I want to hold you accountable to. Now, in order for this to work, it starts from the top. So whether you're doing this with your own family, with your team, it starts from the top. The only way accountability successfully works within an organization if it starts from the top. We've worked with many different companies, and if the owners are out and not involved, it will not work. If the leaders are out and not involved, it will not work. So it has to start with you. Here's the problem, though. So many successful salespeople can't do it because they allow ego to get in the way. And I struggled with this. Ryan Holiday says this: ego is the enemy of greatness. Ego is the enemy of greatness. Confidence is the opposite of ego. So confidence is here. Ego is here. Ego stems from insecurity. Let's look at the greats. Tom Brady and Belichick, Steve Jobs and Zuckerberg, Phil Jackson and Jordan, Benjamin Graham to Warren Buffett. What did they all have in common? They all had someone holding them accountable. Brady had 4 Super Bowl rings, and he was still going to meet with Belichick every single week to go over the wins from the week, to go over the KPIs or the stats from the week, and determine a next play that they were going to attack the following week. So, if Buffett and Brady wanted accountability and saw how it would maximize their potential, the question is to you. There's no right or wrong, but that's a question for you. So how do we implement this into your business? How do we implement it? So next play accountability is broken up into 3 parts. How many parts? 3. The first one is commitment. You've got to make a commitment. I can't work with you and hold you accountable if you're not committed. It doesn't make sense. So you've got to make a commitment that you're going to go all in. You've got to make a commitment on number 1, a clear end result. And not a sales goal. Again, what's the end result that sales goal is going to take you to? And that's got to be clear as day. Because if something doesn't work out, we can revert back to that. Nick Saban, retired, former head coach at Alabama, he said this. He said, when an athlete comes into my office and I ask them, what's your goal? And he says, and they say to go to the NFL, he knows he's got them. Because if they start not doing the things that they're supposed to be doing that are going to get them to the NFL, boom, he can hold them accountable. And so whether you're doing this with yourself or you're doing this with your team, if you don't know the end result, there's no way you're going to be able to hold them accountable. The second thing is we got to have clear expectations. So here's the end result. Now we have to have clear expectations that we're going to meet in order to get to that end result. And the simplest way to do this is not with like long job descriptions or a huge list of rules and speed to lead and a million different things. It's too much. What we found gets the best results for this is having a very simple set of core beliefs and core values. Call it a very simple set of rules. Here's ours as an example that you can use that anytime someone isn't staying focused on their next play to get to their end result and they're not meeting expectations, we can take them out and say, hey, what are we doing? Does that make sense? Yes? End result, 2, expectations. And here's the biggie, and probably the most important, is you got to sign it. You got to sign it. Because this puts it in stone. This says that you're all in. And the reason this is so important is because if you're going to achieve this clear end result, something you haven't achieved before, you've got to be all in. And unfortunately, most people go their whole life with 1 foot in and 1 foot out. Well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it, and I don't know if I fail, then I have to look at myself in the mirror, and I know exactly what that feels like, and I don't want to do that again, and what are people going to think about me? So I'll just put 1 foot in, and I'll give it my best shot. But I'm not going to burn the boats and go all in. But the only way that accountability works is if you make a full commitment to go all in. Leon came up here and shared some really impressive things that you have done and where you're going. And so, by a show of hands, how many of you are all in on 2024? Let's go. Let's go. So the first thing I'm going to challenge you to do is to make a commitment. Whether you're doing this with your team or you're doing this with yourself, don't overcomplicate it. Here's my end result for the quarter. Here's my core values and my expectations. And damn, I'm going to sign it because I'm going all in on it. Does that make sense? You with me? Yes? Yes. All right. Boom. I'll give you an example. So we teach to do these quarterly. And so one of the leaders that we work with on a consistent basis said that he worked with one of his individual contributors, and that contributor said that his end result was going to be a car. And I'm not saying you have to choose materialistic things, but he did. And so at the end of that quarter, they reviewed his commitment, and he had gotten a new car. The second quarter, he put a house. And so at the end of the second quarter, they reviewed his commitment, and he had gotten a house. Now, the third quarter, the leader forgot to do it, and the sales rep reached out and was like, hey, are we going to do those commitment things again? Are we going to do those? This is the power that this can have on yourself and your team. Y'all with me, yes? Perfect. All right, so number one, we got to have a commitment. Number two, we have to track the right KPIs. The right KPIs. What do I mean by that? Most leaders only focus on the result-based KPIs. And these are really important because they grade activity, so we have to have them. Here's a quote by James Clear, who wrote a book called Atomic Habits. And it says, winners and losers have the same goals. So what's the difference? What's the difference? What do you think? Execution? Habits? Boom. What was your name? David? Let's do something fun. Let's all give David a 2 clap. You guys like that one? Was that good? That wasn't very good. Let's give David a 2 clap. Boom. Now we're talking. Look, winners and losers have the same goals. Winners make the doing of the activity the goal as opposed to the end result. Because when you make the goal the doing of the activities instead of the end result, you could say at the end of every day, boom, I hit my goal because I did what I needed to do. And over time, as Mary would say, you'll pull out the person that you need to be in order to eventually get to that end result because you haven't been there before. And over time, because you made the goal the doing of the activities, and you actually do them consistently over time, you're going to develop the skills and form the habits to eventually get there. And so while most people are only focusing on the results, you can focus on activity-based KPIs and, again, win every single day. Because when you have a long sales cycle, you've got to find ways to win. When you have a short sale, how many of you ever done sales where it takes like a week and you close? By a show of hands. Nobody ever? Really? You got to find ways to win. And those sales, you get dopamine hits every single week. For you, it's like once, a couple times a year. So you have to find ways to get those hits. Y'all with me? Yes? Yeah. So we focus on the activities. This allows you to stay motivated during long sales cycles. Constantly finding ways to win. But here's the big thing. When you track activity-based KPIs, you can make fact-based decisions. So if you worked on your business and said, what's the one thing that you can focus on this week when you leave here today, what would that be? And so typically when we ask that question, we hear a lot of, I think, I believe. But is that what the greats do? No. But if we track the right activity-based KPIs and use those, then we can make fact-based decisions. And I know, because I've seen it, y'all have some insane tracking and dashboards and capabilities. Like, it is next level. But let's simplify it. Because sometimes, if we're doing too many things and we don't have focus, it's too complicated. So let's simplify. So I'm going to show you a very overly simplified example that you can use to determine a next play and use these activities to improve. All right, so here's a very simple example, right? I know you're focusing on the density model, and we're expanding licenses within current clients, so use this as making the 100 calls to expand within the current clients that you have, not net new logos. So how many calls did you make? How many connects did you have? Connect conversion rate, 5%, really simple. Meetings booked 1, 20% booked conversion. Really simple, yes? So if you were to look at this, where would you say the hole in the game is that we'd want to fix? What is it? Connects. Who said that? What was your name? Julie? Judy. Awesome. Let's give Judy a 2 clap. Beautiful. Connects. So very simple. Now, instead of looking and working on your business and saying, I'm going to do this week and this thing and that thing and this thing because this person didn't show and this and that. Now, I'm not saying these are the only numbers, right? You would look at all of them. You could find one focus point of your business to laser focus. Here's my next play. This week, I'm going to use this type of phone number that uses the area code and all the locations that I call so I know that they might answer. That's an example. And then you move to the next week. 100 calls, 20 connects. Yes, we increased it. However, our booked conversion rate went down. Pretty simple. Now, same thing. Instead of doing all these different things, boom, one thing, laser focus. I'm going to improve this area of my sales game and stay laser focused on my next play with it. Does that make sense? Are you all with me? Do you see how this is a simple way that you can work on your business versus in it, scrambling around, trying to figure everything out? Boom, take a step up. Where's the hole in the game? And then what's my next play? Y'all with me? Yes? Awesome. So very simple. We got commitment. We have activity-based KPIs. And the third one is coaching. So this is an interesting study that was put out by Harris School of Public Policy. And it states scholars at the Harris School of Public Policy analyzed hundreds of seasons of data and estimated that coaches account for 20 to 30% of the variation in teams' outcomes. Whether you're coaching yourself, you can use the same framework. You're coaching your team, you can use the same framework. That's 20 to 30, 70% a goal, 130% a goal. That's a big difference. And so what we find with organizations and teams is that they don't have structure when it comes to coaching. They'll meet bi-weekly, they'll meet monthly, they'll meet quarterly, but there's no structure for the actual session itself. And if there's no structure for the actual session itself, then how is it possible that you can hold someone accountable to whatever you're coaching them to in that session? Here's one more quote by James Clear. It says, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And if I'm in a room that understands more about systems, this is it. You literally implement AI-generated automated workflows into the organizations that you work with. So if we can have systems for sales and marketing and client success and delivery and product, why can't we have a system for coaching that's going to drive performance by 500%? So here's a very simple framework that you can use whether you're coaching yourself or you're coaching your team. It's going to sound a little bit familiar to what we talked about earlier with Belichick. 1, we always start with the wins. Why? Got to start positive. Very simple. 2, we move to the KPIs. Why? So that we can make fact-based decisions. What do the KPIs say? Not the results, right? Because if we look at the results, we're just going to say, I believe, I think. What do the activities say? And then 3, we determine that next play. What's the next play that you can focus on to improve your game? And then we do it again and again and again. Every time we meet, cool. What are the wins for the week? Let's look at the KPIs. Did you do the play from the week before? What's your next play for this week? What, how, when, go. So you can do it on the micro when someone's down, stuck. Hey, next play, let's go. And then we could do more on a macro of focusing on your business on a weekly basis. Are you all with me on that? Yes? Awesome. Very good. So when choosing a play, it's really important that you don't choose one that's too hard, that's going to create anxiety. Jess and I were talking about that earlier. Or you don't choose one that's too easy, that creates boredom, right? We want to sit a play that's right down the middle, that puts them right into that state of flow. Does that make sense? Y'all with me? Yes? Beautiful. Inconsistent coaching equals inconsistent results. So you saw at the top of that meeting, it's 20 minutes. That's it. Not an hour, not a therapy session. 20 minutes, in and out. But if you're not doing it consistently, you're not going to get consistent results. What if your Patriots decided that for 1 week they weren't going to game plan and they were going to wing it? Probably wouldn't go well. Unless they were playing the Jets. Right? Talent isn't enough. And I'm living proof of that. You know, everybody on the team when I was at Ole Miss was better than me. Every single one of them. Let's be real. Talent isn't enough. We want to improve consistently and constantly raise the bar from where you're at now. Doesn't matter if you're number one in this room, you've got to raise the bar. Then it takes consistency. If you want consistent results, then it starts with consistent coaching and accountability. We found that the best results come from doing next play sessions on a weekly basis. And all of you right now are like, hell no. But what would it be worth for you to spend 20 minutes of your time to take a step back and stop working in your business and work on it? Would you take 2.5% of your time to increase your performance by 500%? Yes? That's what it is. And that's if you spend an hour. If you spend 1 hour a week working on your business and not in it, because I know y'all are grinders. I know you've been doing this for a long time, and I know you're really good. But sometimes when you're really good and you've been doing something for a long time, you just get there, you get into your desk, and you're grinding, you're just finding things get better, and you're handling emails, and you got clients that you're currently trying to make sure they're happy, and you're going deeper with the current clients that you have, and before you know it, you didn't improve you. So is it worth 2.5% of your time to take a step back and say, where am I at in my business? What's my next play for this week? Here are the numbers. This was a study done by the Association for Talent and Development. Probabilities of completing a goal by taking these actions. Having an idea or goal, 10% more likely. Consciously deciding that you'll do it, 25%. Deciding when you'll do it, 40%. Planning how to do it, 50%. Committing to someone that you'll do it. Excuse me, I got something in my throat. 65%. Having a specific accountability appointment with someone you committed to every week, 95% greater chance. And if you do it every week, you improve by 50x. Because you have 2 weeks for vacation, right? 50x over the course of a year. But if you're constantly in your business, you're constantly on the grind, and you're maybe getting a little bit better here and there, but are you really? Are you really improving your craft? And on top of all of that, we actually came up with a very simple way to grade your ability to coach yourself and coach your team. And so we do this by a few different simple metrics. How many scheduled one-on-ones did you have? And how many times did you actually have it? How many plays were you given? And how many of those plays were actually executed? And what was the result of that? Of course, you got to look at the result. Because if someone's showing to their sessions with you, if you're in a leadership role or you're doing this by yourself, if someone's showing and you're giving them a play and they're not executing it, well, who's that on? But if they're showing to your sessions and they're executing the plays that they're giving them and they're still not getting the result, then who's that on? So this is a very simple way that you can use to grade your ability to continue to coach and help yourself determine the next play or help the people on your team determine theirs. Now, one question I always get with this is buy-in. How do I get my team to buy into this? I want accountability. I see how it can affect my team, but how do I get my team to buy in? I've got a team of seasoned reps, and the last thing that they want is accountability. Very simple. Create a gap from where they are to where they want to go. And if you have someone on your team that's here and says they're good, would Belichick keep them on their team if they were just good here and they weren't constantly trying to raise the bar? Probably not. If the late Steve Jobs sat at a round table with his executives and one of the executives says, no, I'm good where I'm at, would he still have that chair, yes or no? No. So that's your choice. So all you have to do is create a gap from where they are to where they want to go and let them decide. And then you'll know. Do they want to get better or not? And you can create the culture you want on your team and the people around you. So I think it's really important as we have this conversation and we're wrapping up here, is I'm a big believer in not just sharing a bunch of fluff, and I want you to have tangible things that you can implement. So we actually have a template for this entire coaching framework that I shared with you that you can immediately use literally today if you wanted to, but you probably won't, because I know that some of you are just withdrawing from alcohol yesterday and craving it for tonight. However, I did want to give you this. If you want it, you can take up your phones, take a picture of this, and there's no opt-in or anything like that. Literally, you take a picture of this, and boom, it's right on your phone in your browser, and it's the actual template. So you customize the KPIs a little bit, and you could literally start using this and executing this framework today. Cool? Yes? All right. So my last question for you, and I have one final story before we go, but my last question is, look, you hear all the time, why do you got to know your why, and why do you do what you do, and why would you want to keep raising the bar and improving what you're capable of? Why would you do it? But I'm going to switch that question. Instead, I'm going to ask, who do you do it for? Who do you do it for? And let me share a quick story to share the significance of this. So as I stated earlier, my dream as a little kid was to play big-time college football, to run out of the tunnel in front of 100,000 screaming fans. And let's be real. I mean, I was an okay high school football player, but I wasn't getting recruited Division I. That wasn't happening. And so I ended up going to a very small school called Jacksonville University in Jacksonville, Florida. And so this school, just to show you how good they are, that's their stadium. Not very good. And so my first year there, I was redshirted, which means I was ineligible to play. And at the end of the season, I got cut from the team. So not only is this not Division I, but I got cut from the team. And I had a call with my dad, and he said, Richie, you have a choice. You can quit, and that's totally fine. Or we could figure out what's the next play. What's the next move that you could take right now? And I thought about it, and I said, you know what? Let's do this. Let's go all in. Maybe I can play at the Division I level, even though I just got cut from this school. So I made a spreadsheet of all 119 Division I schools, and I filled them up with all the recruiting coordinators and all their phone numbers, and I just started calling one after the other, one after the other. And the calls were really short. The first question they would ask me is, appreciate the call, Richie. What's your height and weight? And that was the end of the call. But through making calls, connection after connection, I finally was able to get one tryout at a school down south called Ole Miss. That was one shot. It's like, this can't be real. I can't believe it. I decided to burn the boats. I lived in South Florida, packed my car, drove all the way up to Oxford, Mississippi. No guarantee I was on the team. The only guarantee that I had was one tryout. Enrolled in the school, moved there and everything. And I remember walking up to this indoor practice facility for this one tryout, scared out of my mind. I'm sitting on the floor putting on my cleats, and there's guys like Michael Orr from The Blind Side and Mike Wallace and all these players. And I'm like, man, Eli Manning was in there walking around. I'm like, whew. All I got to do is get my cleats on. All I got to do is do this stretch to the best of my ability, catch this one ball. I got up and I did the tryout and I left and I was like, I don't know, did I do good? Did I not do good? And finally my phone rang and it was the coach. So I answered the phone. She goes, you want the good news or the bad news? I was like, just give me the bad news, get it over with. He goes, you didn't make the team. I was like, Coach, you better give me that good news right now. He goes, you didn't make the team, but the coaching staff decided that they're going to give you a 1-week tryout. They're going to extend you a tryout to prove that you could take the hits that you're about to take on this practice squad. So I was like, all right, let's go. So the next day I walked into the locker room, and everybody else had these really nice plated lockers. Not me. I had a little piece of tape with my name written on it and some oversized pads. And I'm sitting in my locker, and I'm scared out of my mind. Here's my dad. All you got to do is walk through that tunnel. All you got to do is do the first stretch, the next one, catch the first ball, the second one, and one play over at a time. And over the course of that week, I built this reputation as this guy that had the dirtiest uniform on the field. My dad always said, do 3 things when you're on the field. Keep your mouth shut, listen to the coach, and have the dirtiest uniform on that field. And that week, I built this reputation of this relentless guy. And at the end of the week, I'm walking back into the locker room, and all I hear is this grunting behind me. And if any of you know who he is, his name's Coach Ogeron. Coach O, they call him. He's got this very grunty voice, and he comes up and he runs up behind me. He puts his arm around me and he goes, Richie, you got a spot on this team. He goes, you know why? Because I'm a good player? Nope. Because you pissed my defensive line off. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, because you made my defensive line work, and I need more guys like you on the scout team. I was like, all right, let's go. So over that course of this year, continue to build this reputation, Boom, at the end of the season, Coach O got fired. And I had to do exactly what I did that first year all over again. And so for 3 years, I stood on the sidelines of practice. I stood at the sidelines on games. And they used to put up the practice squad, the travel squad list every Thursday after practice. They would put it up, and every Thursday after practice, I would run as fast as I could, and my name wasn't on it for 3 years. And I remember before my senior year, I sat down and I called my dad, and I said, Dad, this isn't going to work. Like, I'm never going to play here. He said to me what he always said, you got a choice. You can quit, or we can figure out what the next play is, but the choice is yours. I had 1 year left, and I decided to go all in. And so over that summer, I was the only person that was in the weight room doing something to get stronger every day. I was the only person in the film room doing something to get better every day. I was the only person on the field working on my craft every single day, even though I wanted to throw in the towel and quit every single day. And finally, at the end of this summer, a spot opened up on special teams. And so somebody asked me, hey, Richie, you must have been the punt returner. You had to have been. You know, the guy that catches the ball and is shifty and, no. Okay, so then you had to have been the kick returner, right? The guy that catches the ball and boom, takes it to the house. No. Okay, the guy in kickoff that runs and makes the big tackle, the 12th man. Not 12th here. So what position did you play then? The field goal holder. Shh. But you know what? It got me on the travel list. It got me a spot. And so as we went into training camp, this period right before the season, where we determine where you are in the depth chart and whether or not you're going to play, it got me a shot. So through training camp, I knew what the coaches wanted. I'd been there for a while. I knew the playbook. So during training camp, man, I played with pure focus. I wasn't thinking, boom. And over the course of a week, 2 weeks, boom. In order to play, you got to be a top 6 receiver, and that means you're going to play in games. And right before the final scrimmage, before camp, I was number 6. And so we had one final scrimmage. This was it. So I remember running through that tunnel, out onto the field. There's a bright blue sky. There's fans in the stands. I could smell the grass. And as I'm warming up, I get a tap on my shoulder. And when I turn around, it was the head coach. And when I looked at him in his eyes, all I could think about was my teacher that when I failed, that said I wouldn't be worth anything in front of my friends. I thought about all my friends that told me going to Mississippi was a waste of time. They always told me I wasn't talented enough, I wasn't big enough, and they always told me I was dumb. But on this day, when I looked at this head coach in his eyes, he said to me, Richie, you literally have given me no choice. You're on scholarship. What? What? Like, this is the dream for 15 years. Like, I went back into the locker room so fast, got dressed, ran to my truck. I called my mom. I said, Mom, you're not going to believe it. She goes, what? I said, Mom, I just got put on scholarship. Like, it just happened. I said, I got to call Dad. So I call my dad. And my whole life, the one thing I wanted to do was to make my dad proud. And no matter what I did, I couldn't. And that day I called my dad, and I said, you can't believe it. He goes, what? I said, I just got put on scholarship. And he said the one thing I've been going for my whole life. He said, I'm proud of you. And I realized in that moment that it wasn't my why as to the reason I got up and kept getting my ass kicked after ass kicked, practice after practice, to get to this one thing. It wasn't why I did it, even though the desire was bigger than the excuses. It was who I did it for. And so my question for you, if you implement this, is who will you do it for? Thank you all so much for the opportunity to be here and share this message with you.